On this episode of Hudson Valley Hustle, I'm joined by Eliza Edge. Eliza founded and runs the accelerator program within the innovation hub of the Hudson Valley. She basically helps startups and growth companies get funding to take their business to the next level, all within the Hudson Valley. This is a great episode. Hope you enjoy. So where are you now? So you grew up in Woodstock?
Grew up in Woodstock. Part of my story, and I'm happy to go into it whenever,
Sure.
but left the city kind of in my 20s to go for work and opportunity, and then came back, and now I live in Kingston.
Gotcha. So how did you get involved in working with startups, growth companies here?
Yeah, I have always worked for small businesses, and starting at age 13 for a local catering company for my friends' parents, and have always worked in either being a founder myself or building support programs for entrepreneurs.
So how does that translate to what you're doing now? So give me like the rundown of exactly what it is that you do now.
Yeah, sure. So maybe to answer that, I'll go back a little bit, not to go too long, but so again, spent my 20s in New York. I was building a program for low-income entrepreneurs in New York City, and was also getting my MBA. And then the plan was always to come back to the Hudson Valley because, why wouldn't you want to live here? So came back home, and was at the time had a company I was running, and then when the pandemic happened, it was like the wrong type of business for startup for a pandemic. So shut that down, and then at that same time, I met the dean of the business school at SUNY New Paltz, who had started something called the Hudson Valley Venture Hub, which was sort of a unfunded organization at the time, but it was meant to be this regional hub in the Hudson Valley because we are so dispersed, town to town. Mm-hmm. And there was all this great programming and acceleration services and government programs and founders and the creative energy, really. But there needed to be a central hub. And so I met the dean of the business school, and then ended up kind of taking the concept of the Hudson Valley Venture Hub, and got it funded, got the innovation hotspot designation, and then turned it into my job. So nowadays it's an accelerator. So we work with growth stage companies at every stage. So everyone is normally technology forward to some degree. They're building scalable companies. They're both early stage startups as well as that growth stage company that might be making multiple millions of dollars a year, but is still looking to kind of grow and expand. And no matter who we're working with, industry agnostic, founder agnostic, business stage agnostic, they're all growing their companies in the Hudson Valley. So to answer your question of what do I actually do, is a lot. We are really in the hands of working with founders and growing their revenue, helping them secure private investment or government investment, and then ultimately to create jobs. But really, companies are coming to me because they're looking for funding for the most part. I got you.
So who funds your organization then? Is it the businesses themselves or outside?
Yeah, so it's a blend of really public, private, and government funding, as well as foundations and philanthropy. But yeah, so we have the Innovation Hotspot designation, which means New York State gives us some funding. Okay. We're funded by banks, and then companies pay in to some degree, depending on how much revenue they have, into the accelerator program. We also most recently have launched an impact investing fund to kind of go and correlate with all of that. So that's another revenue stream for us, and the small management fee that we would take for that.
Great. Okay. As far as, so a company would come to you if they're looking for funding, right? So they may be growing or starting up, and they're looking for, whether it's venture capitalists or whatever it might be, where are the funds coming from for these startups?
Yeah. I mean, that's the $1 million question, literally, right? But it comes from a mix of, it really depends on the type of company. So not all companies are venture capital bound. And that's just based on the return profile of what the company is. But if they are looking for equity or venture capital, there's a whole sort of track that will take that company down in order for them to meet the right capital stack to kind of get there. A lot of times founders will come in and they'll say I'm looking for an investment and I have this idea. And I'm that's really great. Ideas are cheap, right? So like, let's get some traction, some revenues, get this started, because you're not ready for investment. Other companies, they'll come in, they're like, I'm looking for investment. And you're like, well, you're actually not a great fit for venture. Your return profile, the business you're building just like isn't a good fit for that. So we might look at a series of bank financing or other state or federal loans to kind of get them off the ground. And if it is like a really, really high tech idea, I might send them out to other resources, either in the region or across the state, to kind of help them get to that level, until they're ready for maybe investment.
Love it. So what kinds of companies, like, can you give me some examples of companies that we might know or maybe not know that you've worked with? Or
Sure. Well, I'll give you like a range. Clean energy, clean tech is definitely a sector we work a lot in. So company based out of Ulster County there's so many. Where do I even pick? One company based out of New Paltz is called Cool Down. And they basically have this device that plugs into existing HVAC systems. The founder realized, like, he went down in his basement in the summer and he was like, this is 68 degrees and the perfect temperature. Why can't we circulate this temperature throughout the house? And so we found a way to circulate through plugging into the existing system, keeping that house kind of at 68 degrees all year round. So cold air in the summer, warm air in the winter. And that's great because it's reducing the need to draw electric.
Sure.
So it's in that kind of climate tech space. I also have a founder who's working on the first ever biochar installation. So biochar is like literally like when you burn stuff, the remnants of that. Okay. And then how they're taking that biochar product, like charcoal, and turning it into a high R value insulation that could be in built materials. I have a founder in Sullivan County who has taken brownfield sites. He's using this technology to like extract that brownfield site and then turn it into concrete. We have a company in Dutchess County that has developed a machine to process cannabis quicker and more efficiently without needing to hire a whole labor force. We have software platforms that are disrupting the technology, the transportation industry, which is really like paper and pen, and they're digitalizing it. So we have we have like wide. Stuffed bagels. Yeah. So there's like a really wide array of companies.
Talk to me more about the stuffed bagels. I'm interested in the stuffed bagels.
They're great. So
they're digital. They're digital.
They're the one digital. And that's what I mean by like technology forward, in that like it could be a consumable food that we're looking to grow. Yeah. But it should have a little bit of an edge and something different. So stuffed bagels, you might all know, they're in Poughkeepsie, they're in Ulster County, and they have like a sandwich on the inside of the bagel, so that it's like buffalo chicken, but in the inside of the bagel.
All right.
Patented product. Yeah. And like, I guess like one closing thing on our companies, where part of what I do is to create the next generation of exciting companies that are growing here in the Hudson Valley. Like, having gone away in my 20s for the first job, I would love it if the next generation had engineering jobs and marketing jobs. And so that's what we're really doing, is like seeding that next generation.
Exactly. Yeah. Because as those companies grow, so will the jobs and the opportunities here. And it keeps things here.
Yeah,
which
absolutely.
is what you want. Yeah. Does a lot of the funding that these companies get, does it come from the area as well, or do you look for funding everywhere? Yeah.
So historically, we've looked for funding everywhere. Okay. It's not uncommon for founders to, take a train down to New York or take a plane to San Francisco. But the reason that we had enough data points to talk about launching a fund is because the Hudson Valley is like historically always an area for wealthy people, either from New York or have moved here, that care about the area, love the area, and want to help like invest into the area. And so what we've tried to do with this fund is almost create like the mutual fund of the local mutual fund, right? And be able to bring in some of the money of people who want to invest into companies here that are exciting and impact driven. So yeah, it's a mix of both, like historically investors sort of across New York State, but we are really trying to hone down and capture more investors here locally.
Very cool. That's great. So you're even keeping that money here.
Local investors, local companies, local like prosperity is sort of what we're going for.
Yeah, that's great. That's really cool. So what's something that a startup or a company in a growth stage, what's something that they might not realize when they're trying to go for funding that you can kind of bring to their attention? Or maybe like it's a mistake that they make when originally trying to go after funding. What's something that you can share with that?
So many things. So like really like the first and foremost is the concept of like a seed stage or a like kind of startup stage, you know, basically like $0 to your first check of $250,000. That is really hard to do if you don't have revenue and you're asking strangers to invest in you. And like the sad truth is, if you don't have friends and family, like if you don't come from money and people who are willing to like give you money and bet on you, it's really hard to find someone if you just have an idea to fund it. So unfortunately, it means like you have to kind of build a team of people who are willing to put sweat equity into something to kind of get off the ground. So I would say like, you know, before you even, I meet a lot of founders and they're trying to build a tech platform, but they don't have a CTO on their team. I'd say like, honestly, you need to go out and find a CTO, and we can help get the word out a little bit, but like you need to find someone to help you build this product. And so you have a very MVP version of it to start getting traction, to either get a signed contract of a customer or actual money in. But fundraising to build something, like those days of doing that in the seed round are just like very hard to do.
Makes sense.
So yeah, that's
like I said, ideas are cheap. Right. Everybody's got the greatest idea, but you have to have something to be able to show for it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's like, I just always think of the show Silicon Valley. You ever watch that show? It's like that. It just brings me back to that. I just love that show. Is there like any kind of like realism to something like that? Or are those days kind of like,
I think there's definitely realism to that, and especially in Silicon Valley.
Okay.
I think what I have aspirations of building is the Hudson Valley version of what that might be. Like,
okay.
And it still is that way, right? Like you need investment, and it's not all pretty, like as that show shows, but you know, we're not very much of like what the companies I'm looking for is not to build the next like Uber like way to transport, but like really disruptive ideas that are grown here, that are also like impact driven and really part of like the Hudson Valley vibe and ethos here.
Give me some others that you're personally excited about.
Well, there is.
I'm also just interested to know what's happening around here because some of this sounds incredible.
Yeah, well, I mean, I literally meet with hundreds of founders a year, probably, and I'm either directing them back out to existing resources, and then we work with about 20 companies a year. So at this point, I've been like in the weeds with about 40 companies very closely.
So you really have to vet out a lot.
Yeah, I'm meeting with a lot of people that like aren't ready and need to do. I mean, there's amazing programs already existing here, so I do them, send them back out. But there's a lot of vetting, a lot of due diligence.
Yeah, sure. And who's doing all that? I mean, do you have a team under you?
I have a small team. Okay. Yeah, I have a small team that does help with that, and I also have a database of advisors that help me work within the companies themselves. Like our accelerator program is a series of, they're working with advisors. We might write them micro grants. We might give them paid student contractors. We also are able to give them tax incentives.
Okay.
So it's not just me.
Yeah, that's okay. That's good to know. What's something that you can give to somebody or a group that has that idea, but it's just the idea, right? And they're looking to come to somebody like you, where like, I have this amazing idea for this SaaS company that can be the next, it could be the next Uber. Everybody has those aspirations, right? But what do you say to somebody like that just isn't that really real infancy stage, but has the idea of going gigantic tomorrow?
I'd say I love the vision and the energy, like, but yeah, you need to build it, like build a small version of it. And so maybe it's not like you're going to have Uber the next day, but you should have some kind of like way to test it, of like a Google form, or people are calling for their ride. Like, how can you very inexpensively test the idea to see if it's actually solving a need that customers have or they're willing to pay for? And like, that's like back to your question around like issues with fundraising. Founders will come to me and they'll say, we've raised $1 million and we just like built this platform because we thought it was incredible, and they never tested it with potential users. They never got feedback, and so they spent all this money and time in building something that like no one was willing to pay for. And so if you have a great idea, I would just build a low tech version of it, try it out, get some feedback. And then, what you first sort of go to market with is going to change.
Everybody wants to disrupt, right? Like that's I don't like the buzzword, I guess you could say. It's I want to disrupt this market. I want to, I want to disrupt this industry. But it's everybody kind of like goes to that point where like I have this idea, but it's already been done before. How can I be different, right?
Yeah.
And I have this conversation with clients. Well, it's like, well, other people are doing this. Why would I do that? Well, if that were the case, there'd only be one restaurant. There'd only be one car manufacturer. There'd only be one insert industry here.
Totally.
Right? So like, how can people differentiate themselves, I guess is where I'm trying to go with that.
Yeah. I mean, there's a number of ways, like by having a different brand, I mean, really what I'm looking for in terms of differentiation is their product, their service is hitting some point in the value chain that is very different. So it could be they're delivering some manufacturing product a lot quicker, or they are building insulation that's environmentally friendly and more energy efficient, or so what is it, like that value that you're delivering on? Okay. But also making sure that like a customer is willing to pay for that. I mean, it's one thing if you build a biochar insulation product and you're like, this is sustainable, it's really high efficiency, it costs $1 million, and then no one wants to buy it. Sure. So it's like don't ever forget the customer that is on the other end of whatever is that's going to buy that.
Right. Because I guess great products solve problems, right? At the end of the day, people are looking for solutions to their problem, as long as the value of that is greater or equal to what the cost of that solution is.
100%,
right?
Yeah.
So you don't necessarily have to create something brand new, but you can do things differently to make things either more efficient, more affordable, more sustainable, whatever that goal is, but the customer ultimately has to see value in that, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
So that's great. So so let's say a company has some revenue, they have a product. What should they do if they want to get to that next level? And I know there's different stages of different companies, but what would be something that you would give to them that would say, hey, if you're at this level, maybe try to do this?
Yeah, I would say if they have some early customers or they have some revenue, figuring out how they can get a lot more of those customers and revenue. So become obsessed with them and develop kind of like your marketing strategy to reach more of them. And just as much as possible, go heads down on that, because that is the key to unlocking kind of the rest of the business as far as I'm concerned. Gotcha.
Do you help with the marketing aspect and the avatar creation and all that good stuff? Where do you guys come and play on that?
Yeah, so it depends on the company, but certainly I'll meet a bunch of companies where they're selling, maybe they have a few, closed deals, and maybe like it's a lot of our companies are B2B mostly.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So, well, I mean, and we do B2C too, but so they might have a few contracts sort of signed with a B2B client, and we'll say, okay, like let's look at how you're like, you're going to be paired with this advisor who's just doing an audit on like your sales and marketing strategy. And so they're looking at like your website and how you're capturing that lead and your pipeline, and like then your series of meetings that you're having with a client, and what does that contract look like, and what do your terms look like, and what's the pricing. So having an advisor kind of come in who's like skilled and does that. That might be like, and really our accelerator program, we're meeting a founder, we're deciding like what is the best, what is the most like actionable, most important thing that you need to do to grow this company? And so if that is marketing and sales, then we'll find you sort of that advisor to work with you one-on-one to get you to that point.
Are those advisors in the organization, or are they outside?
They're outside, so they're contractors for the most part.
Interesting, gotcha. So do you have advisors for B2B and B2C, or?
Yeah, mix of that, and also skill set. Like, so for a company that's fundraising and they might already have their data room and their deck and their financial model and they're like pitching, I might put them through like a fake due diligence, basically track where they're working with an actual investor who's running through it and then giving them like brutal, honest feedback around how it's landing. So we have like just a whole Rolodex of amazing skills and advisors here in the Hudson Valley.
And because you're vetting so many businesses every year, are you afraid to call somebody's baby ugly?
I try to do it with
tactfully?
Grace and with being gentle, and people want to hear what they want to hear, but yeah.
Right, but you said, but it doesn't benefit them if somebody's not brutally honest with them at the same time
No,
too,
you're
right?
just wasting your time and money.
Exactly. And you're doing them a pretty big disservice if you don't kind of tell them, especially if they're coming to you for that kind of advice.
And honestly, like if they're not, they know they're doing something wrong if they're not like immediately selling, or they need to grow. Like they're looking for help. And usually I'd say people are coming in because they know they can't do it alone, and they want your like honest, brutal feedback.
Gotcha. What percentage would you say are those kind of like solopreneurs or very small teams? Maybe they don't have a CTO.
Yeah.
Does that happen a lot, where it's just the one person that says, I'm doing this all myself?
Yeah. Well, I'd say our vetting due diligence process is we're looking for founders that are not solo entrepreneurs.
Oh, gotcha.
And that's because it's too hard to do it alone for the most, because if you're a founder, especially if a tech company, how are you supposed to be the CTO, the CFO, the COO, the CMO? And a lot of people are, but I think what's even most important before you even get private investment or public investment in your company, you need to convince people to invest in sweat equity and invest in your company. It might even be part-time, but I'm looking for a founder's ability to recruit a team. And so it could be, a lot of the times it's like a part-time CTO, or maybe they have a CTO that's overseas for the first years. But really, like, it should be a team of at least 2 people with different skill sets.
Gotcha. That makes sense. So really like strategic partnering with, having somebody could that be like somebody that's the money and the idea, and somebody that's actually the doer?
Yeah,
or
it could be. I've seen a lot of interesting combos, and like a huge part of this is who the founder is, right? Like, what's their background? Do they have corporate expertise? Are they coming and did they experience this problem that they're solving firsthand within their job? Because then that is a real indicator that you have a good product.
Mm-hmm. I feel like, who doesn't want to be a founder, right? Everybody, it's
fun,
glamorous and fun, but like, do you ever get to that point where you're like, you are better suited in a different position that might not be at the top?
Yeah, at a certain point, I've seen founders like they are really good at creating ideas and getting things started, but they're not the best at leading huge teams, which is definitely a thing. But I think if you're an early stage founder, it's like once you do it, it's addicting. You can never go back. I mean, it's but yeah, it's like a certain skill set. That's a different skill set than running a team of 100 people for some folks.
Yeah, and a lot of them, unfortunately, like you said, when they're getting started, they're doing it.
Yeah,
they're doing it themselves, right? Do you help companies exit, or is it just growth?
We will as we grow. So this is like year 2. I've been doing this and growing the program and meeting a lot of founders, especially for the ones that are more venture side of it. We won't, we're not expecting to see big returns on any of this for another few years. But so it's like kind of very much in the beginning of creating this ecosystem. I'll also add across New York State, and I didn't know this before I started this program, but there are 10 regions in New York State. In the Hudson Valley, we were the last region to get an innovation hotspot, and actually like kind of by 15 years, which means we are leaving like the money and the designation on the table. And so a lot, like, while the Hudson Valley has been a creative community environment region for hundreds of years, the like startup community building, like the hub part, is really new. So the jury's still out on that, I'd say, on the exiting part.
But should an exit be part of your, I guess, like intro strategy? Should that always kind of be in your thought process down the line?
Yes and no. I mean, really what I'm looking for is to build companies that are motivated to grow in the Hudson Valley, create high quality jobs. Like, that's how that started, right? The accelerator program. And then we realized these companies are growing, and like we're doing everything besides putting like actual money into it. But if we put actual money into it, we would get some of the like financial return from it as well.
Gotcha.
And then that's when we would look at building companies to exit for return. So it's like, it's both the impact part as well as the return on the investment.
You've been doing this a couple of years. Has there been like a huge success story that somebody would recognize that you guys have directly helped get to the next level?
A bunch. I'll give like a Main Street example, because we do support a range of companies, but the Kingston Standard is an amazing brewery. It's in Kingston, and brewery pizza. They were looking to grow into a new space, and needed a few million to kind of get that project up and running, and not just like begin producing beer and selling it outside of the brewery, but also to build a brewing process that was capturing CO2 within the brewing process to make it like a net zero beer that's being brewed. So it was technology forward, Main Street company. And so what we had helped that founder do is connect with a New York State opportunity where they could go after New York Restore grant, which is a little under $600,000. It was like a big part of the investment that founder needed.
Yeah.
We had hired our grant.
Did they know that existed, or was that?
We were exploring. So they came looking for funding options, and that was one of the options we explored together.
Gotcha.
Was that grant opportunity?
Because I feel like there's a lot out there that people don't realize that.
Yeah, and I'm in the weeds with like all kinds of funding. That's like one of the angles we do is like what agency, state or federal, is out there that you should know about and be like lining up to apply for funding.
Yeah, not to deviate too much, but this was going back. I don't know, like in the early stages. There was a restaurant up in Albany County, I believe it was, that realized that there was a New York State grant for expanding outdoor spaces for restaurants.
Oh yeah,
and she was like, I had no idea. We wanted to expand and we couldn't. And then we discovered this grant, and now magically they gave us the $50,000 to build our expansion outside, and now we're able to serve so many more people, hire so many more.
It's amazing.
Some more staff. Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of what I do is identify funding opportunities, and not just to private investors, but like public grant opportunities. So yeah, we're lucky to live in New York State. There's a lot of benefits in that way.
So I'm sorry, go back to the brewery. I just want to hear.
Yeah. So anyway, we hired them a consultant to write that grant with them. We figured out the strategy. They ended up winning it, which is really exciting. And then that lines them up to then go after bank financing or a mix of private capital to kind of get that off the ground. So that's one company. I mean, our companies have another company. Adoro is the first bank that is helping immigrants who are arriving to this country be bankable. Before that, wasn't possible. And they've raised a few $1 million and have hundreds of accounts, thousands of dollars there. So literally have started up a bank in Westchester County. The list kind of goes on and on.
That's great. There's a lot going on here. That's cool.
There's a lot going on here. Yeah.
That's great. So, so how would somebody get in touch with you and the accelerator to if they're in that stage?
Totally.
And tell me what stage you're looking for to have somebody reach out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's worth noting also we support early stage startups. We also have programs for growth stage companies. So really, if your company's looking to grow and you want to do it in the Hudson Valley, I would love to talk. So you can find me on LinkedIn, Eliza Edge, or if you Google Hudson Valley Venture Hub, there's a contact form there at the bottom. But yeah, I mean, we are sort of hoping to continue growing this economy of the Hudson Valley in all ways, industries, founder types.
That's great. Anything else you want to add before we, anything anybody should know about you or what you guys are doing?
Just respect to all the hustlers out here in the Hudson Valley. And yeah, that's it. Thanks for having me.
I love it. Thank you so much for coming. It's nice to meet you.
You too.